afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Justin Nielsen here with a look at the action in today's session, where we saw the indexes take a well-deserved pause. Justin.
Yeah, it was a big week last week, so I mean they deserve to take a little bit of a break, but there's still some interesting stocks out there. So we'll take a look at Fortinet, Samsara. We'll revisit that from last week's breakout, and also Fluence Energy.
All right, we'll get to those, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. The NASDAQ today down about 0.1%, so the mildest loss today. We had the S&P 500 down 0.2%, the Dow off by 0.6%. Small caps taking a little bit harder of a hit today, but also that came after a pretty big gain on Friday,
Right.
but today down about 1.2%. So overall, Justin, not all too surprising to see stocks backing off here.
Yeah, and again, if you put it especially in the perspective of last week was a big week, and so the fact that we're holding on to the majority of those gains. Look, the Nasdaq, I'll be honest, it looks extended. We've been saying that for a while, and it's still going up. And now we've got more participation as the breadth really kicked it into high gear last week. I mean, it was so impressive that we saw RSP, the equal weighted S&P 500, outperform the S&P 500, and not just by a little bit. It was like almost double the S&P 500. So we've got the Nasdaq a little bit extended, the equal weighted kind of coming on, the RSP equal weighted coming on, the S&P 500 not looking too bad. The fact that it's coming right up above that February 2nd high, it breached that very decisively on Friday. It was kind of right around the 4,200 area, diddling around there, and Friday was just so decisive above that, and now we're getting into those August highs. So a lot of good looking action here in the indexes, more stocks participating. So now it's just a matter of, look, with such a strong week last week, it was okay for us to take a little bit of a pause here. But what I liked was it really didn't give up that much.
Right.
As you mentioned, the Russell 2000 gave up the most, but it also had the biggest gain from last week. And so the way that I look at this is because of that gap up. If you look at that range, exactly what you're doing there, Ali, from
it's almost like I could read your mind, Justin.
you know where I'm going. Yeah, if you look at the range of where it started from the previous day to where its high was, it's still, even after today's 1% plus drop, it's still way up there in that range. So as long as it kind of holds there, and now the 200-day moving average line is kind of a nice line in the sand for it to stay above.
Right. So we'll have to see if it can do that. And then in terms of how the market continues to handle this digestion of the big gains, potentially telling for how strong this market is, right? I mean, we don't want to see a whole lot being given back, even though we could see a pullback. But what does that pullback look like? I think is the question.
Yes, a pullback is not bad unless it turns into something more serious, right? Pullbacks are good. They give you more opportunities. And probably that is what a lot of investors are looking at now. Hey, with more breadth participation, this is what we asked for. But now the stocks that are extended, you're like, oh, I can't do anything with them. So a pullback could give some more opportunities in some of these leaders that may have gotten away from you. But again, when it starts getting a little bit more serious and then gets into sector rotation, that starts getting a little unnerving, because now the pullbacks look into breakdowns, and now you're plunging through the the 50-day moving average line, and they start piling up sell signals. So if the pullback can be nice and orderly, hopefully on low volume, those are the types of things that we like to see, and especially if they can get support at prior levels of resistance or at moving average lines. Those are some opportunities potentially for new buys or adds to previous buys.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say we are in a power trend. We don't know when the NASDAQ will touch its 21-day line, but it will happen. That is one thing we do know with certainty. At some point, it's going to happen. What does that look like? If we get a bounce, what kind of signal would that be for you, Justin?
Well, again, as you said, it depends on how it does it, right? If it happens real steeply, that's where I tend to get a little unnerved. If it happens more orderly, and it also depends. You have to be very careful in a period like this to not be chasing stocks too much, because what can easily happen is this normal pullback can end up shaking you out of positions, and then you might have a hesitancy to get back in and potentially lose out on some future profits because of that. So it's kind of one of those things that you have to really be doing the balancing act of balancing your exposure. And as you mentioned, yes, we've had a power trend in the NASDAQ composite since March 30th, but it hasn't felt that way broadly. And again, you just take a look at RSP and the equal weighted S&P 500, and it tells you, oh yeah, this is why I'm not necessarily seeing it in my portfolio, because for a while there, the NASDAQ composite looked very different from a lot of stocks. But again, if there's going to be more participation here, this could be the chance for more, but we have to wait and see. There's still this wait and see component to it. Last week was great in terms of that breadth, but it's just the start. So we have to see a continuation, a sustainability, because what we've seen before, I mean, look, January was great, and I think we were all getting very bullish on January, but it didn't last. So what we need is we need this breadth to continue, and we need it to last.
Right. Sounds like a plan. Let's breeze through some ETFs before we take a look at the 3 stocks we want to highlight. Here's IGV. This is the tech software ETF, notching yet another up day in a row. So looking pretty strong here, continuing its move. SNH chip stocks down a little bit, eating into some recent gains, but by and large, Justin, it looks like the sector holding up after that big move that it had recently.
And here again, just go to the weekly real quick, and it kind of helps put it in perspective. Taking that step back, this doesn't look bad at all. You had that big strong week, and it's just
2 weeks, really.
Yeah, exactly. 2 weeks. You're right. So it's really holding the bulk of those gains. So I don't see a problem there. This pullback, it's not even to the 10-day moving average line.
ITB, this is the home builders, strong day on Friday and not giving too much back today. So we're seeing a lot of setups in this area too, either that were actionable late last week, or maybe if we get a little bit more tight action, could present some follow-on entries. XLU, so here is utilities up today, but the overall trend is down, which is great. I mean, we don't want utilities to be the leading group.
Exactly. This was the leading group today, but you can see that it's definitely not a leading group. So again, and it gave up a lot of ground too. So be on the lookout for XLU, XLP, XLV, another one to look at. And that one was the second leading sector ETF today, the spider sector ETFs, looking a little bit stronger, but that's also because there's a lot of opportunities in healthcare in growth too, not just defense.
Right. Yeah. This is a pretty broad sector. I mean, all the sectors are broad, but there are select areas within this that have been looking pretty interesting. And XLE, one final one to take a look at, reversing lower after hitting the lowest level in a couple of months just late last week.
Yeah, and we did have some news on oil that we were expecting this weekend. There were some cuts there in terms of production that helped boost oil early on, but it couldn't hold it. So I think this is one that you just have to be careful with while it's trading underneath its 50-day moving average line.
Okay, let's take a look at Fortinet FTNT, security software stock, really ramping it up today in some volume, Justin, closing up about 4.6%. Not only did it clear these recent highs just above 69, but also the high above 522. So I think that was notable, a strong close. And this is one at the end of the show. I said, hey guys, give me a name for the watch list. You gave us Fortinet, and it took off a little bit later on in the session.
Yeah, so it looked
momentum there.
It looked decent at the time, and it just kind of built up on that. And one of the things that I liked about it is that despite this kind of breach news that came out, Microsoft said, look, there was some vulnerabilities that they had reported, and it was with Fortinet. It's still kind of, a lot of people are looking at it as, look, there might be these breaches every now and then, but you still need the security software, and Fortinet is definitely top of class. One might argue that Palo Alto has been showing a little bit more strength lately. That's PANW, but Fortinet is right up there with it. So it's very important to be looking at your leading stocks in the groups, and this computer software security group has made a big move from down in the doldrums with a lot of computer software, including software enterprise stocks. Now it's up at number 40 out of 197 groups. So that's pretty impressive. But getting back to Fortinet, if you take a look at the weekly chart, again, take that step back. It was a very V-shaped kind of base here recently in this most recent time period, and the earnings really fueled that 3 weeks up very strongly. But again, you just see that the Microsoft, the news there didn't really cause this to falter too much. It stayed above its 10-week moving average line. So now we've got this big long base that it's really on the verge of coming out of, and so that looks interesting to me. And we did put on Swing Trader. I should also mention that Allison Gatlin, who we usually rely on so much for our biotech news, she went a little bit rogue and went on Fortinet, and she did the stock of the day on this today. So that's an article definitely worth reading, because it does cover the security software area in general, and again the needs that we have for this to stay in place, because there's a lot of bad actors out there that want to get your data.
Yes, and on the verge of an all-time closing high. So, we're seeing a couple of stocks. NVIDIA is back at new highs. Apple, that was the other one I was thinking of, back at new highs. Fortinet,
or at least it was before their developer conference.
Right.
kind of faltered a little bit.
All right. Well, it's right there on the verge.
Not bad at all.
On the verge. All right. Thanks, Justin. Next, let's go to IOT, another software stock. This is in the enterprise software group. And wow, did this one really pick up steam today after a breakout on earnings on Friday. This is another one we covered on the live show. It was still under the $25 mark, I believe, or right around there.
Right around there.
Yeah, when we were talking about it on the show, and really accelerated throughout the day. Let's take a look at the intraday chart here.
Yeah, this was pretty early on. This was brought up by Scott St. Clair, and look, Scott is typically not one who buys earnings gaps. You've got to remember that this was an earnings gap on Friday, and a lot of times what he does is he waits to see how it closes that day. And this had a very strong close. It kept the gains, and that was a 28% move basically that it had on Friday. So spectacular, reaction to earnings. And as he was looking at it, he was noting, hey, now we're getting above the highs of Friday. And so he mentioned that he put on a trade on this earlier in the day, and it just kept on going. It was one of those that couldn't be stopped. And look, you've got to look at this as being extended at this point. You've almost already hit that, that green level as it broke out. It didn't give you a chance, to be fair. It didn't give you a chance to buy it at that proper breakout, because it gapped up right through there. But, this is where you have to, if you're going to do it, you have to say, okay, I'm going to get in. Here's where I'm going to get in, and here's where I'm going to get out. You have to have that kind of exit strategy in place if things don't go well. And this one did offer kind of a spot. So this is one of the reasons why we like to have these IBD live discussions, where for an hour and a half we're just talking about stocks live, seeing what's coming up on our radar, seeing what came up on Mondays, at least what we were seeing over the weekend. So a lot of good ideas that come out from this, and this one again, Scott St. Clair deserves the credit on this one.
Yeah, go Scott. FLNC is another one we've been talking about in recent days because of the move that it had on 530, a 6% move in above average volume. And it even, didn't have too bad of an earnings reaction. Pretty nice little run here up to the report and afterwards, with some volume coming in. And it looks like 25 is a pretty clear level of resistance for this one now, Justin.
Yeah, so this was another one we talked about on IBD Live, and it did get above there today, and it was looking really strong. It was fighting for top dog status on the IBD Live watch list with Samsara. That both of them were up over 10% at one point today. This one did back off a little bit, but it's still right there. So that 25 level, I think, is still an area to watch. It was interesting that there was some volume that came in on the upside here. So I think that this is, again, still potentially playable. So keep your eye on it. It can be volatile. Some of these moves are a little bit wider for, more so than what some people might be able to stomach, but it is in the right space. Look, we saw that Tesla is kind of on the comeback trail, getting back above its 200-day moving average line. And so, Fluence is definitely heavily involved with the energy storage. That's very important for EVs.
Thank you, Justin. And thanks everyone for tuning in. That's it for today. We will be back tomorrow morning on IBD Live. We're joined by David Ryan. So don't miss it. Investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. And keep tabs on investors.com/events. It's a great URL to bookmark so you can stay in tune with all of our upcoming guests, whether it's on Justin's podcast, my Trader Tales show, IBD Live guests, Barron's Live appearances, and more. We've got a lot going on, and sometimes it's hard to know what the schedule is, but investors.com/events has it all there for you. So keep it bookmarked. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back here tomorrow.